Social Security Reform 2024. 3.4 million Americans impacted by new policy changes. August 18 deadline. Social Security Reform, a looming crisis for 3.4 million Americans? Imagine not being able to simply call the Social Security Administration, SSA, to update your address or check the status of your benefit claim. This could soon become a harsh reality for millions of senior citizens in the United States. Under a proposed new SSA policy, beneficiaries will have to verify their identity online or visit a field office in person, sparking concerns about accessibility and fraud prevention. The controversial policy change. The SSA aims to expand its online authentication requirement for various services, including address changes, claim status requests, benefit verification letters, and tax statements. While the agency claims this move is necessary to curb fraud, critics argue that it will create a significant burden for those who rely on telephone access to manage their Social Security benefits. The human impact. Around 3.4 million people will be affected by this policy change, forcing them to travel to field offices to update their addresses and complete other requests. This is particularly concerning for those living in rural areas or with transportation or mobility difficulties. As Kathleen Romig, Director of Social Security and Disability Policy at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, notes, beneficiaries will be forced to take millions of unnecessary trips to field offices, where they will face longer waits for appointments and slower processing times. The authentication conundrum. The SSA plans to introduce a multi-step verification process to generate a personal identification number, PIN, for beneficiaries to change their addresses and complete other requests. However, critics argue that this will create new barriers for older adults who are not comfortable with online systems or lack reliable internet access. Nancy Lemond, Executive Vice President and Chief Advocacy Officer at the American Association of Retired Persons, AARP, warns that 1 in 4 older adults who report never going online will struggle to verify their identity online. Critics speak out. Advocacy groups are concerned that many senior citizens and people with disabilities won't be able to complete the verification process, which includes generating a one-time PIN through their My Social Security accounts. Lemond urges the SSA to reconsider the measure, citing the potential for lengthy wait times, costly trips to field offices, and difficulties for those in rural areas. The SSA's response. A Social Security spokesperson claims that the report is inaccurate and the new identification process is completely optional. However, the agency's regulatory filing suggests otherwise, stating that 3.4 million respondents are expected to decline the online authentication process and visit a field office instead. What do you think? Do you agree with the SSA's efforts to strengthen fraud prevention and identity verification? Or do you think this policy change will create unnecessary barriers for senior citizens and people with disabilities? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Social Security phone restrictions. What new identity checks mean for you. Imagine being locked out of your lifeline to Social Security benefits because you can't navigate a smartphone. That's the harsh reality millions of Americans now face as the Social Security Administration, SSA, rolls out controversial new phone restrictions, all in the name of fighting fraud. But here's where it gets controversial. Critics argue these changes punish vulnerable citizens while solving a problem that barely exists. Starting August 18, 2025, anyone calling the SSA to perform basic tasks like updating an address, checking claim status, or requesting tax documents must first jump through digital hoops. Callers will need to create an online SSA account, verify their identity through facial recognition software via platforms like ID.me or login.gov, and obtain a one-time PIN. For tech-challenged seniors, rural residents with spotty internet, or disabled individuals struggling with mobility, this creates a perfect storm of barriers. The SSA itself admits this could force 3.4 million people into overwhelmed field offices for in-person verification. A logistical nightmare, given that staffing has plummeted by 1,200 plus employees since 2020. The fraud debate, a solution in search of a problem? The agency claims these measures combat fraud, but the numbers tell a different story. Of 110,000 benefit claims processed by phone this year, only 2 showed signs of potential fraud. Even the SSA's own oversight reports call fraud minuscule compared to total payments. This isn't about security, it's about starving the system, argues Kathleen Romig, a former SSA staffer turned policy analyst. These hurdles disproportionately hurt low-income seniors and disabled beneficiaries who rely on phones as their only lifeline. Legal advocates like Michelle Spatafor warn that requiring selfies and digital IDs excludes those who can't afford smartphones or lack transportation to field offices. The hidden crisis, a system on the brink. Field offices, already reeling from staffing cuts and reassigned workers, now face a tsunami of in-person requests. It's impossible, confides one SSA employee. We've lost thousands of staff, yet we're expected to handle millions more visits. Who's left to help? Meanwhile, the SSA's tech-first agenda raises eyebrows. Commissioner Frank Bisignano, a former financial executive, insists the agency will meet customers where they are. Yet the policy pushes vulnerable groups toward digital tools they can't access. Even the AARP has slammed the changes, calling phones a lifeline for older Americans in a scathing letter to the SSA. The political firestorm. Democrats like Senator Elizabeth Warren accuse the Trump administration of using fraud fears to justify service cuts. Every barrier is a backdoor benefit reduction. Former Biden-era SSA head Martin O'Malley goes further, alleging these policies undermine trust in Social Security itself. But here's what most miss. These restrictions follow a pattern. Earlier this year, the SSA briefly banned phone-based claims entirely before backtracking amid public outrage. Now, critics say the agency is resurrecting the same flawed plan with a tech-friendly veneer. Your turn. Is this progress or punishment? As the SSA races to implement these changes without public input, we're left with urgent questions. Should we sacrifice accessibility for security theater? Does fighting hypothetical fraud justify excluding real people from critical services? And with field offices drowning in demand, could this accelerate the very benefit delays it claims to prevent? Sound off below. Do you see these changes as necessary safeguards or a dangerous disconnect from the people Social Security was built to protect?